Well, that's a weird story, right? A lot of times you go through the Bible and you come across stories and you're like, what exactly is actually going on here? And I want to go into it, and there's layers that I want to dig into with this one because this is a fascinating one. However, I also want to complement it with our series, this Ecclesia church series as well too. And there is something I think for us to unpack with the story. There's also something to unpack with us with the series. And there's also, I think, something to unpack with what I believe is our mission as a church as well too. So recapping Ecclesia, the idea we wanted to come with, that is the word that is used. It's a secular word. It has to do with the gathering of elders. The point of the gathering was to discuss and resolve the social and political issues of the community. They took that word and they placed it on the gathering of what the Christians were doing because they were seen as not just a group that would come together to learn and study and become like Jesus, but they wanted to be like Jesus, and they went out and they went into the societies around them and transformed them, beautified them, brought the kingdom to this earth. The church was not a place where there was buildings, bishops, Bibles, brands, and bands. It was raw, authentic, spirit-led, and as organic as you could get. It was a fascinating movement. They tried to stop the movement. Persecution of Christians happened very quickly, and the persecution led to growth. It's incredible because I just look at the history of the church and I think, I don't think I would have had the guts and the spine to be able to handle what these early Christians and followers of Jesus were going through at all. And yet, we're called by the same Spirit and the same Lord to live out in the same way. So how do we connect that today? Well, week one, we talked about what a spirit-led church looked like. Last week, we talked about a mission of the church to the margins, which is still true. And today, we are going to talk about the messiness of the church, which is a messy place because where there are humans, unfortunately, the mess shortly follows. And today, I want us to talk about the framework of what I believe is our simple structure of a church, which is to love Jesus, to learn from Jesus, and to live like Jesus lived. I honestly believe that those simple things not only captures the essence of what the original church was doing, the built-off theology that you can go into all the different locations of what exactly is this church, but also just to simplify it and make it about Jesus again. So why should we love Jesus? Because honestly, I think that that's where it has to start. We have to start there. And that is the most important location. If we do anything for God from a location of not love, it's just going to be something that's going to look really weird and different. And honestly, we all have natural dispositions inside of us where we build our lives out of things that are not love. And examining those things and evaluating those things can be difficult. I mean, take a look at the disciples in this story. It's fascinating. What is going on here? But beginning in the very first part, to get our minds wrapped around why should we love Jesus, in this moment, Jesus has set his sight and resolute his mind and mission to go to Jerusalem. He understood what he was getting ready to do. He was going to suffer, he was going to die, but he had a mission, and his mission was to forgive sins and to seek and save the lost, to offer forgiveness to the world. Hebrews 12 highlights this and connects it to us as well, too. I love this. It says, let us, this is the church, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. And I think that last part might pop the most for us, growing weary and losing heart. If you have walked after Jesus long enough, you know what it's like when the journey and the race turns from a downhill run to an uphill struggle. From running uphill to climbing up the mountain, right? You know what I'm talking about. Life gets hard. And for us, the challenge, the conversation around suffering, conversation around entering into locations where others are suffering and carrying those burdens with one another. It's the Christian way. It's the Jesus way. It's to leave our comfort zone. Proverbs 3:5-6 is one of my favorite sections of verses that is, again, one of those like compasses for me. I don't know if you have those sort of life verses that your compasses that help you get your mind and your heart and your soul back on track. But I love it. I have to go back to it over and over and over again. Proverbs 3:5-6, it says, trust in the Lord. Who? The Lord. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. How much of your heart? All of your heart. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding, which I will tell you this right now, leaning on your own understanding is what we do. It's how we understand. It's how we live. It's how we've survived. It's our reptile brains that need to survive. It's instincts. But we're told, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and don't lean on your own understanding, but do this in all your ways. Acknowledge him. Include him into the things you are doing. And this is the beautiful thing, and this will help you out, he will set your path straight. He will. I'm not telling you I will. I'm not telling you your neighbor will. I'm not telling you your best friend will. I'm not telling you your family will. He will set your path straight. But don't freak out, because when this happens, when he sets your path straight, you know what he winds up doing? And this drives me nuts. This drives me nuts. He's not going to lead us down the simple road and the nice paved road, and it's all so smooth. He's going to lead us down that rocky, unkempt road and the messed up parking lot inside the divots and the creases and then the uphills. And you're like, where are you leading me, God? I don't know where I'm going right now, but we trust you in all you are ultimately telling us to do. Easier said than done, right? Boy, I've said that a lot this week for whatever reason. I keep saying easier said than done. Here's somebody who lived it. You know her, Mother Teresa. She chose to leave a life of comfort and lived among the poor in Calcutta. She said this, loving Jesus inside of Calcutta was a loved Jesus in disguise, disguised in the poor. And this again connects to the mystery of what it is like when you do these things for others, when you welcome the foreigner, when you clothe those who don't have the resources to clothe themselves, when you feed the hungry, when you care for the sick, when you visit the prisoners. Jesus over and over again will let you know, it is like you are doing it to me. In fact, it is done unto me. But when we ignore these people, we turn away from God. Our love for Jesus, when we do this, when we take this radical decision of doing something that it's not going to get you any accolades, it's not going to give you any furtherment of an agenda, it's not going to build wealth, it's not going to build health, it's not going to give you anything other than a deeper connection with Jesus himself. And it will do this, as the one promise, it'll transform you. If you will enter again into the margin and care for the sick and care for the poor and not give up and not lose heart. How can we know how it's going, right? That's the thing. What can I do to give myself a temperature check? You will know them by their fruit. Good trees bear good fruit and bad trees bear bad fruit. Things that are dying eventually have to go on and die, but things that are growing and healthy and emerging have to grow and emerge. Part of that as well, too, is pruning. Is there any gardeners here today? I know that I know a couple, but what do you do to save a plant? When you look at it and say, I'm not giving up on this plant quite yet. What are some things that you would do? Shout them out for me. What would you do? Water it. What else? So what's that? Miracle grow. Sunshine. And pruning as well, too. So there is the gardener, the great gardener. God himself enters into the garden, and he works on these things. He has got to provide some of it, right? We're going to need the sunlight. I'm not going to be able to do all that. We're going to need the rain, God. But there's some things. Maybe I'll dump a little bit of fertilizer on there, right? But then the pruning aspect as well, too. To cut things back, to make space for something better to enter into it. And here's the big thing I want to talk about the rest of the morning, the big fruit, the ultimate one. And get ready, because I'm going to enter into this with you. I'm going to let you know this will be uncomfortable, so hang in there. The fingerprint that is going to be left behind inside of all of this to identify how's the fruit growing, how's my tree in my garden of God growing. It's the fingerprint of forgiveness. Buzzword in church, right? But let's actually talk about it. Let's really unpack and sit in forgiveness. Mother Teresa, on one occasion in Calcutta, listen to this. This is gonna it hits. Asked a wealthy shopkeeper for food to help feed some of the poor and hungry children in her care. Without saying a word back to her, the man spat in her face. Mother Teresa calmly wiped the spit from her face and replied, "That was for me. Now what about something for my children?" Whew. Anybody here be able to do that in that moment? I couldn't. Because her mission was so locked in of, I do not care what happens to me. I'm about these kids right here. And they need to be fed. Literally and spiritually. This demonstrated a lack of anger, mercy, care for the poor, and embodied what a living Jesus looked like in front of this man. This moved the man. He would later return with food and became one of her supporters. Sometimes in life, if you hold on to Jesus as hard as you can and you just remove it all and say, I'm going to try to even myself get out of the way, and I'm going to put Jesus here. Do you know what winds up happening? One of your greatest critics might be turning into one of your greatest supporters. Because an authentic Jesus, nowadays, I could tell you this as well too, if you present an authentic Jesus in front of people, it's rare, actually. It's not common. But you have the Spirit of God in you to be able to do those things. Furthering from this story into the work of Mother Teresa did, she has this beautiful quote to say, people are often unreasonable and self-centered. A little bit of a truth bomb there, right? I'm sure we all have people in our minds that are stewing. Hang in, right? Because we're like, we usually do a couple things. One is you direct it at somebody outside of yourself, right? And you're like, boy, I hope that so-and-so's listening to this right now. Boy, I'm going to share this message with so-and-so after because they need to learn about forgiveness. And then there's another kind of person as well, too. The person that you just beat yourself up over and over again. You're like, I am messing up constantly. And I'm telling you, and I'm telling all of you, what I say to one, I say to all. So you are not alone. And when I say to all, I say to myself, too, this is not an easy one for me. People are often unreasonable and self-centered, she said. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are honest, people may cheat you. Be honest anyway. In the final analysis, this is what she concludes with, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Amen. This entire experience, all of it, is something that we are experiencing with God. And anytime I can look at two and I wonder with bitterness, unforgiveness, anger, I wonder, and I have to include in my prayers as well too, where in this, God, am I having some resistance towards you and your direction as well too? Doing the deeper, harder work, digging into the soil, right, to make that plant healthy again and finding out What if there's some rocks inside of me that need to get pulled out so that this can grow better and the roots can take correctly? The stones of bitterness and unforgiveness, they grow underneath us and they will choke out our roots and they will kill the plant. What can we learn from Jesus inside of this? He sent messengers on ahead and who went into the Samaritan village to get things ready for him. But the people there did not welcome him because he was heading for Jerusalem. Jesus sends us to difficult assignments, and there's three things that we can take from what the process is about to be. Is rejection is a possibility. Revenge is something we will feel like practicing. Don't. And rebukes from Jesus need to be received. A few words on each one. Rejection. How do you deal with rejection? I don't, right? I mean, anyone, you build up your confidence in order to do something and then you're rejected for it. Like, we all don't walk away. We're like, man, I feel really spectacular after that rejection. Let's go get rejected again. Jesus himself was rejected. John 6 is one of my favorite stories. Jesus gives a hard message, a really hard one. You read through and it's confusing as heck. And then afterwards, the majority of the crowd, it's a church service, so imagine this. Church is happening and Jesus is preaching. Wouldn't that be a better scenario than myself? I'll tell you right now, it would be so much better, right? It would be clear, it would be concise, and it would be dense. And he gives a difficult teaching. And afterwards, the majority of the people, a crowd, leaves. The church not only just splits, he's left with the schism instead of the split. Like, he gets the last little remnant left over. And he turns to his disciples and he says, you want to head out too? You want to give up? Here's your chance. Kick out. Quit. It's up to you. A choice. And Peter speaks up and says, where else are we going to go? You're the one that has the words that give life. Where else will we go? When we know him, when we have met him, when we know he's the truth, the way, and the life, we take our deep breaths, we pull up our bootstraps and say, onward then. Revenge. I mean, how many times have we walked across situations where it's like, I'm going to get back at them? Whatever it is. We all deal with it. It could be as simple as, I mean, we how many of us, and I won't raise hands, where you're so mad at somebody, or your boss, or whatever it is, this person, you walk by their car and you're like, boy, it would be just terrible if, I don't know, they got a flat tire right now by me. Or if they got a few scratches. Nobody's ever thought that, right? Or maybe I'll put a little post online. Cryptic but direct, but cryptic but direct. All these that we think about that revenge is our knee-jerk reaction. I'm going to get back at you. It's our primary, primitive instinct. It's actually an old way of thinking as well, too. God tried to regulate these things. Generationally and societally, he's had to work inside of these locations of what is going on in society. That's why the deeper we go back into the Bible, the weirder it gets. Don't freak out. Society is growing and trying to learn and trying to evolve. We still got a long way to go. Someday somebody's going to look back on our generation and be like, holy cow, they were messing it up. And if you've been around alive long enough, you can look around and be like, yeah, I think we've been messing up a little bit, right? A lot of bit. Back in the old times, God said, I got to help you guys figure out justice. And so he said this, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. And then Jesus comes along and wrecks the whole thing. He preaches forgiveness. He preaches enemy love. He lives out what he preaches. In verse 54, it says this, when the disciples, James and John, saw this, that when they were rejected, Jesus sent us to go out and go to these places and share the news. I'm commissioned by Jesus himself. And what do? Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven to destroy them? You know what I'd like to do is send a nuke, Jesus. I'd like to send a nuclear weapon to blow this whole entire place up because they're all godless and horrible people. Right? We don't say stuff like that today, right? Oh, of course not. We don't say yeah, we do. Where do they get that from? Where did they get that from? It's in the Bible. It's in the Bible. That's where they got it from. They went back to the story of Elijah, one of God's greatest prophets, who called down fire on 3 different instances. One to consume an altar and then show people that this is the work of God, and I'm going to prove to you that this is the work of God. And on another occasion, an evil king, boy, that adjective, evil in front of king, right? The only good king is Jesus. An evil king from Israel sends 50 guards to come take Elijah, and he calls fire from heaven. They get consumed, pretty intense. And then he does it a second time, also pretty intense. So they knew their Bibles, and they knew what had happened. And they said, Jesus, do you want us to do the same thing? Do you want us to call down fire? Nuke them till it glows? What does Jesus say to them? He rebukes them. Earlier in Luke, we'll talk a little bit more about it next week. Luke 5 says this: if a town refuses to welcome you, shake its dust from your feet as you leave to show that you have abandoned those people to their fate. He doesn't say go after them. He doesn't say get revenge on them. He doesn't say call down fire and let's just blow everything up until everybody decides to get in line and then we're going to be really good. Yeah, fear-based religion. Anybody get exposed to that inside of your lives? I have. I'm still going to heal the rest of my life from growing up inside of that. But he says this: if somebody doesn't welcome the message of forgiveness and love, just move on. Just go on to the next thing. It's time. It's time to move on. How can we preach forgiveness if we don't practice it ourselves? How do you preach forgiveness or call for forgiveness and don't practice it yourself? How do you accept forgiveness from Jesus, and we still don't know the ramifications of the realities and the spiritual disconnect that had happened because we are broken, because we need forgiveness, and we will receive that, but then not give it to others? Well, it's the same parable that Jesus talked about with economics as well, too. He says it's like this huge ruler that lends out multi-millions of dollars to this one man. And then this one man is forgiven of the debt because he can't pay it back. And then he goes and he finds one of his workers that owes him a couple $100 and starts choking him in the street and says, pay me back or you will be punished. The disconnect, the cognitive dissonance that we have, the cognitive dissonance that is happening inside the church in America as well, too. You have been forgiven of so much. When you do not go out and forgive, we actually practice, really, Satanism. Because that's what it's about. Take, never give. Christianity, the Jesus way, accepting what he has been given to us, accepting that forgiveness, it should when we really realize it, when it really connects in our hearts and our minds and our souls, it should overflow so much where we're like, I got to give it away. It's too much. He's given me too much. I got to give some of it away. And he gives the rebuke. He gives the rebuke. And I wonder, what does he say? I wonder what he says. But really it's this: he gives a correction. Let me help you with what you're misunderstanding. The disciples didn't call down fire again after that. James and John, they were called sons of thunder. It's a nickname. And I'm sure because they were like loud and rowdy. That's the reputation that they had. But they had to receive this correction. They were two of the three of the closest followers of Jesus. They had to be told, examine yourself. What's the issue? Was the issue failure? Was the issue your personal ego? Was the issue your personal agenda? Jesus rebukes them, and here's the reality. Jesus was the one actually rejected, not them. Jesus' ego, total humility. His agenda, salvation, opportunity, and grace upon grace. We're not going to shut the door on people just because this happened. Sure, shake the dust from your feet and move on, but don't give up. Know that the story is not over for these people. Jesus told wonderful stories about the Samaritans. He tried to encourage them. There's a beautiful woman at the well who was rejected even by the Samaritans, who he welcomes into the family. And then she goes out and she shares the message of this good news about Jesus. And then it leads people to the kingdom. It's the opportunity that we cannot miss, which is this thing, this kingdom thing that's here and now and happening and that we're called to participate in love, in forgiveness. It's never going to quite look exactly how we have it mapped out in our minds. There's an individual named Fioma Tatanka, and this was back in the 40s. They lived in Japan. This was after the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. This individual lost their entire family and was badly burned themselves. Had a ton of resentment and anger towards America. And I mean, you would too. It doesn't matter what country would bomb whatever, and you lost everything, including your own health. In return, he burned with revenge. But eventually was introduced to missionaries, American missionaries. How tough would that be? They were there not just to share the message, but to serve, to care for the sick, to care for orphans, to help them rebuild. Her name was Peggy. And eventually, he had a question for Peggy is, why are you caring for your enemies, right? I mean, didn't we start the whole thing with Pearl Harbor and you bombed us and you're mad at us and you hate us? They responded with this, I followed Jesus and he taught me to love even my enemies. Some further information that eventually they found was Peggy's parents were also missionaries in the Philippines, and they had been killed by some of the Japanese army. And this was mind-blowing to this individual. Learning to forgive, learning to follow Jesus even when you're like, I have so much anger in me and I don't know what to do with it. And which we all, honestly, guys, if we're honest with ourselves, there's anger and there's hurt there. And that's when we get to the deeper parts of it. Where's the anger coming from? What's it bubbling up from? It's from a hurt. It's from fear. It's from pain. And what are we called to do? What's the remedy? It's forgiveness. Eventually, this person gave their life to Christ and became a pastor. They are quoted as saying, I hated the enemy, but Jesus taught me to love. I sought revenge, but Jesus gave me peace. I was broken, and Jesus made me whole. Doesn't that sound beautiful? Love, peace, wholeness. This last thing, to live like Jesus lived. Eventually it says this, then he and his disciples went to another village. They moved. They kept moving. That is the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God moves, and so do we, but with the right message, and don't neglect it. And in this, I think we'll see God. I think we'll start acting like children of God, and we can bring heaven to earth. And Jesus preached this in his magnum opus, the Sermon on the Mount, a piece of this, the Beatitudes, the things that will make you blessed. And hear this, and I hope it blesses you. Blessed are the merciful, for they will show mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And this morning I'll conclude with a story, maybe a familiar name to some people, an individual named Corrie ten Boom. She was a survivor of concentration camps in the Holocaust, some of the most horrific things known to man, and unfortunately to the reality of what's happening on the planet, nothing that we are unable to commit again, which is terrible. But may we learn from this story and the challenge of it. Corrie ten Boom survived and was a believer in Jesus, was a follower of Jesus, and would go to churches and share her experience. And once in a church in Berlin, a man approached her and said, "I am glad to see you. Don't you know me?" And then she recognized him. He was one of the Nazi guards at the exact camp that she was at. And she said he was particularly cruel, one of the cruelest there, horrifically cruel to her sister. And then he said this to her while she is trembling in fear, being re-brought back to all of that trauma. "I am glad to see you. I'm a Christian. I read my Bible and I know that there is forgiveness. Will you forgive me?" Her first response was this: "I could not. I could only hate him." And wouldn't that be us too? But then this happened. She recalled a verse. It was Romans 5:5. It says, "The love of God is shed abroad into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who is given to us." And then in that moment, she was able to say, "Thank you, Father, for the love, that your love is stronger than my hatred and unforgiveness." She recognized his love is bigger than even my anger. His love is bigger than my hatred in this moment. His love is bigger than my inability to forgive. And so, in that moment, she says, "I was set free." And she extended her hand, and she shook his hand, and she forgave him. And she said this, recalling that: "You've never touched so the ocean of God's love as that you forgive your enemies." One of the most beautiful things that you have an opportunity to live in today is to choose to forgive somebody in a way that you know you need to. And that's hard. And I want to say that in a safe way as well, too, because sometimes there is I don't need to maybe directly have that person's presence because of what they have done to me. Or maybe it's unavailable to you because they are no longer in a way that you're able to connect with them. But you need that forgiveness, guys. We need that forgiveness. We have to enter into that space of deep forgiveness. And if we do, it sets you free, actually. It sets you free. And so with it, you can touch the ocean of God's love as you never have touched it before.